The penny landed on the table with a crack that silenced 47 people. Rachel Monroe stared at it. 1 cent, her tip, after she'd just saved a man's life. Marcus Hastings, billionaire, $4.2 billion, Seattle's most powerful tech CEO, smiled down at her like she was nothing. "For your honesty problem," he said, tapping the note he'd scrawled across the $847 check. The Riverside Grill, Seattle's most expensive restaurant 3 blocks from Seattle Memorial Hospital, was dead silent. Rachel's hands trembled. The thin scar on her right wrist burned like it always did when she was angry. These hands had performed over 200 heart surgeries. These hands had saved children, executives' mothers. These hands had just pulled food from a choking man's throat while this billionaire froze in panic. But Marcus Hastings didn't know who she really was. Nobody did. Not anymore. What he didn't know: Rachel was one of America's top cardiac surgeons before a scandal destroyed everything 18 months ago. What you didn't know: in 72 hours, his daughter's heart would be failing, and Rachel would be the only surgeon alive who could save her. Here's my question for you. Would you stay quiet to survive, or speak up and lose everything? Drop your answer below and subscribe, because what Rachel does next will change both their lives forever. 547 days ago, Dr. Rachel Monroe had been explaining aortic valve replacements to Stanford medical students. Tonight, she was scrubbing marinara sauce off booth vinyl for $12 an hour, plus tips that apparently came in pennies. The smell hit her first every shift: truffle oil, seared steak, the sharp tang of expensive wine mixing with garlic and rosemary. The Riverside Grill's kitchen was a war zone of heat and noise. Pans clanging, chefs shouting orders in English and Spanish, the constant hiss of an industrial dishwasher. Rachel's evening shift started at 4 p.m. and ended at midnight. 8 hours of controlled chaos, where she became invisible. But she was good at invisible. She'd been practicing for 18 months. Her order pad felt heavier than a scalpel ever had. Table 6. Mr. Morrison wanted his salmon medium rare, no butter, lemon on the side. Table 12. The couple celebrating their anniversary always split the Caesar salad, always ordered the ribeye for 2. Rachel had memorized the preferences of 30 regular customers, their orders stored in her mind like surgical procedures. She moved through the dining room with the same precision she'd once used in operating theaters. 3 plates balanced on her left arm, 2 in her right hand, never wobble, never spill. When bills came, she calculated the splits in her head. $127.50 divided by 4, minus the $23 wine bottle one person didn't share, plus 18% gratuity. Faster than the computer system. "You're like a machine," her coworker Jenna said once. Rachel had smiled and said nothing. Machines didn't have $340,000 in legal debt. Machines didn't wake up at 3 a.m. remembering the weight of a human heart in their hands. At 7:15, Jenna yelped from the kitchen doorway. Rachel turned and saw it immediately. The angry red mark spreading across Jenna's palm where she'd grabbed a hot plate. Rachel's body moved on instinct. "Let me see." She took Jenna's hand, examined the burn. "2nd degree, partial thickness," she said. The words automatic. "Run it under cold water for 20 minutes. Keep it elevated. Don't use ice. It'll damage the tissue further. If blistering starts, you'll need silver sulfidizing cream." Jenna stared at her. "You sound like a doctor." Rachel's face went blank. 0.3 seconds of pure panic. Then she forced a smile she'd practiced in the mirror, the one that said nothing meant nothing. "I watch a lot of medical shows," she said, and walked away before Jenna could ask more questions. Her hand found her right wrist, fingers tracing the thin scar there. She always touched it when she was stressed, a nervous habit from the incident. The scar that ended everything. In the bathroom, Rachel pulled out her phone and checked her bank account. $847.29. Rent was due in 11 days. $1,450. Her monthly payment on the legal debt was due in 3 days, $2,800. The math didn't work. It never worked. This job wasn't a choice. It was survival. She thought about the free clinic where she volunteered 3 nights a week, the only place she could still practice medicine under supervision, the only place where she wasn't invisible, where people called her doctor instead of miss. Her manager, Denise Harper, poked her head into the bathroom. "Rachel, table 9 needs you." And FY, Marcus Hastings just walked in. Denise was 52, a veteran of restaurant wars, and she ran the floor like a general. Rachel nodded, touched her scar one more time, and went back to being invisible. She had no idea that in 3 hours, invisible would no longer be an option. Marcus Hastings didn't walk into restaurants. He arrived, and the air pressure changed with him. Conversations dropping to whispers as Seattle's 4th richest man claimed space like he claimed market share. Absolutely. Rachel felt it before she saw him. The entire dining room shifted. Voices lowered. Servers straightened their postures like soldiers at attention. Even the kitchen noise seemed to dim. He came through the door with 3 men in suits, all of them wearing that particular confidence money builds. Marcus Hastings, founder and CEO of Hastings Tech Solutions, net worth $4.2 billion, Seattle's 4th richest resident. This was his 3rd time dining here in Rachel's 18 months, and each time felt like a natural disaster. Beautiful, powerful, destructive. His usual table by the window was already set, though he'd never called ahead. Power didn't need reservations. Denise appeared instantly, her professional smile locked in place. "Mr. Hastings, wonderful to see you again." He nodded without really looking at her. "The 2015 Chateau Margaux," he said, not a question, not a request. $500 a bottle. He didn't open a menu. He didn't need to. Rachel watched from across the room as other diners recognized him. Phones came out subtly, pretending to check messages while angling for photos. 2 businessmen at table 7 leaned together, whispering. A woman in pearls actually stood up, clearly considering approaching his table before her husband pulled her back down. Marcus Hastings was 48 but looked younger, the kind of aging that money makes graceful. Lean and fit, personal trainer, private chef, probably a home gym that cost more than most people's cars. His salt and pepper hair was cut with precision, every strand intentional. The charcoal Tom Ford suit he wore cost $6,000. Rachel knew because she dated a surgeon who wore Tom Ford and never shut up about it. But it was Marcus's eyes that told the real story. Gray, calculating, constantly measuring value. His smile was practiced, the kind that closed deals and charmed investors. But it never quite reached those eyes, except when his phone lit up. Rachel saw it from 20 feet away, the way his face softened, just for a second, when he glanced at the screen. A photo of a teenage girl with his same gray eyes, giving a thumbs up, his daughter. He checked the phone every 7 minutes, like clockwork. She timed it during his last visit. Then something unexpected happened. An elderly woman struggled with the heavy restaurant door as Marcus's group entered. Without breaking conversation with his executives, Marcus caught the door, held it open, even steadied her elbow as she shuffled through. "Thank you, young man," the woman said. He nodded, that practiced smile appearing and disappearing. Rachel saw it and hated that she did. It complicated him, made him human instead of just another rich man who thought money made him right about everything. Denise assigned Rachel to his table. Of course she did. Rachel approached with her order pad, her invisible mask firmly in place. "Good evening, gentlemen. Can I start you with the Margaux?" Marcus said to his phone, not to her. "And make sure it's actually 60 degrees this time." Now he glanced up, barely. Last week it was room temperature. He looked through her, not at her, like she was animated furniture, a thing that brought food and took orders and had no thoughts, no history, no value beyond service. Rachel wrote down the wine order and walked away. Her wrist scar burned. She had no idea that in 45 minutes, everything would change. Trevor Chen's face shifted from pink to purple to gray in exactly 8 seconds, and Rachel's body moved before her mind could calculate the cost of being seen. It happened during the main course. Rachel was refilling water glasses at table for when she heard the sound, that awful, silent panic of someone choking. Not coughing, not gasping. Nothing. Complete airway obstruction. She spun toward Marcus Hastings' table. Trevor Chen, the man sitting to Marcus's right, had gone rigid. His hands clawed at his throat, the universal sign for choking. A piece of ribeye probably lodged in his trachea. His mouth opened and closed like a fish drowning in air. Trevor? Marcus stood, his voice sharp with confusion. Trevor, what? The other executives froze, useless in their panic. 8 seconds. That's how long the brain can go without oxygen before cell damage starts. For minutes until permanent brain injury. 6 minutes until death. Rachel's water pitcher hit the table. She crossed the dining room in 4 strides, her body operating on 18 years of medical training. The restaurant noise faded to white static. Step back, she said, her voice carrying the command of an operating theater. She positioned herself behind Trevor, her arms wrapping around his abdomen, one hand in a fist just above his navel, the other hand gripping it. Quick upward thrusts, creating positive pressure in the thoracic cavity. 1 thrust. Nothing. 2. His body jerked. 3. The obstruction shot out of Trevor's mouth, a chunk of partially chewed meat landing on the white tablecloth. He gasped, a horrible, ragged sound, beautiful because it meant air. He collapsed forward, coughing, crying, breathing. The restaurant exploded in applause. Rachel stepped back, her hands shaking now that it was over. Adrenaline dump. She knew the physiology had lectured about it, but knowing didn't stop the tremor. Trevor turned to her, tears streaming down his face. You saved my life, he gasped. Where did you learn to do that? And this was the moment, the choice. Rachel could smile, deflect, say she took a CPR class once, and go back to being invisible, safe, hidden. But she was so tired. 18 months of being invisible, of hiding everything she was, of pretending her expertise didn't exist. I'm a cardiac surgeon, she heard herself say. The words felt like breaking glass. Or I was, before my license was suspended 18 months ago. The dining room went quiet again, but different this time. Curious. Shocked. Marcus Hastings stared at her. His expression shifted from relief to something else. Suspicion. Doubt. He sat back down slowly, arms crossing over his chest. A surgeon, he said, and his voice had that dangerous quality now, that executive tone he probably used to destroy competitors. Really? Rachel's stomach dropped. She knew that tone. And what exactly, Marcus continued, his voice carrying across the silent restaurant. Did the surgeon do serving tables? He smiled, and it was cruel. Bit of a career downgrade, wouldn't you say? Trevor tried to interrupt. Marcus, No, I'm curious. Marcus leaned forward. Because real surgeons don't lose their licenses unless something went very, very wrong. He looked around the room, playing to an audience now. Malpractice, maybe? Incompetence. The words hit like scalpels. Precise. Public. Designed to humiliate. You're probably lying to get a bigger tip, he said, almost laughing. Claiming to be a doctor. That's fraud, isn't it? Rachel felt her pulse hammering in her ears, the old fury rising like bile in her throat, every nerve ending screaming at her to run, to apologize, to shrink back into invisibility. Voice one in her head, stay safe, walk away, you need this job. Voice two, make him see you. She chose visibility. The Heimlich maneuver, she said, her voice steady and cold, works through compression of the diaphragm against the posterior thoracic wall. This creates positive pressure in the thoracic cavity sufficient to expel an obstruction from the trachea. She met his eyes. Your friend presented with cyanosis and inability to phonate. Textbook signs of complete airway occlusion requiring immediate intervention to prevent hypoxic brain injury within 4 minutes. The restaurant was dead silent. Marcus stared at her. For 0.7 seconds, uncertainty flickered across his face. Her knowledge was undeniable. The terminology too specific to fake. Then his ego snapped back into place. His jaw tightened. He pulled out his wallet, signed the check with aggressive strokes. $847. Then he took out a penny from his pocket and dropped it on top with a sharp ping. On the check in black ink he'd written, "For your honesty problem." As he stood to leave, he caught Denise's eye across the room. "Your waitress has an honesty problem," he said, loud enough for everyone to hear. And then he was gone. Rachel stood there. The penny on the tray, 47 people staring at her. An elderly woman at table 3, Dolores Martinez, a regular, started clapping. Slowly others joined. But Rachel knew the truth. The applause wouldn't save her. She looked at the clock. 8:47 p.m., Thursday, November 14th. She had no idea this was the moment that would change everything. Denise called Rachel into the office at 9:15 p.m., and the way she couldn't meet Rachel's eyes told the story before words could. "Close the door," Denise said quietly. Rachel closed it. Her hands were still shaking from the adrenaline from a confrontation, from 18 months of silence finally breaking open. Denise sat behind her desk, looking older than her 52 years. "Marcus Hastings just called the owner," she said. "Did you know he's a major investor in the restaurant group?" Rachel's stomach turned to ice. "He owns 40% of the company, Rachel." Denise finally looked up, and her eyes were genuinely sorry. "I have to let you go. Effective immediately." The words landed like a diagnosis. "Terminal." He made one phone call. Denise continued, her voice tight. "One. And now I have to fire you or I lose my job too." She shook her head. "I'm sorry. You're the best server I have. But I can't fight him. Nobody can." Rachel stood there, the numbers cascading through her mind like falling dominoes. $847.29 in her checking account. Rent due in 11 days. $1,450. Legal debt payment due in 3 days. $2,800. And now no income. The math didn't just not work. It was catastrophic. "Can I at least finish my shift?" Rachel heard herself ask. "I'm sorry," Denise whispered. Rachel walked out into the Seattle rain at 9:34 p.m. 18 months of hiding. Gone in one moment of truth. The rain soaked through her shirt as she walked, and suddenly she was back there. Back to 18 months ago. Back to the moment everything fell apart. Massachusetts General Hospital. Operating room 6. A tech executive on the table with an aortic dissection. The kind of surgery Rachel had done dozens of times. But this time, Dr. Lawrence Brennan was lead surgeon, chief of cardiothoracic surgery, 30 years of experience, and hand that had started to shake. Rachel was the junior surgeon, the assistant. She watched him make the error in real time, the arterial anastomosis, the connection between vessels, done wrong. Too much tension. She tried to say something. But hierarchy in operating rooms was law. The patient died. Massive hemorrhage. 37 years old. Father of 3. The hospital's legal team moved fast. $50 million wrongful death lawsuit. They needed a scapegoat, and junior surgeons are disposable. Sign the surgical notes, they told her. The notes that blamed her for the error. Sign, and this goes away. She refused, told the truth. So they destroyed her, suspended her license pending investigation, leaked her name to the press as the surgeon responsible, blackballed her from every hospital on the East Coast. The legal battle cost her $340,000 and took everything else. Her reputation, her career, her identity. She'd fled to Seattle to start over. Anonymous, hidden. And now, even that was gone. Rachel stood in the rain outside her apartment building, checking her bank account one more time. $847.29. That's what 18 months of survival looked like. Her phone buzzed. Unknown number. She almost didn't answer. Rachel just crossed a line there's no going back from. Before we continue, drop your answer. In her position, would you have stayed silent to keep your job or told the truth knowing you'd lose everything? Be honest. There's no right answer here. And subscribe, because what Marcus does next isn't just cruel. It's personal. And what happens in 72 hours? Neither of them sees it coming. Marcus Hastings had built a $4.2 billion empire by being right about people. So when his background check on Rachel Monroe came back Friday morning, the cognitive dissonance hit him like a server validation error. She told the truth. Friday morning, Rachel sat on the floor of her studio apartment, laptop balanced on her knees, searching job listings through blurry eyes. She hadn't slept. The math kept running through her head like a broken algorithm. $847.29 minus $2,800 equals catastrophe. She typed medical job Seattle into the search bar, then stopped. Who would hire a surgeon with a suspended license? She tried restaurant jobs instead. 37 listings. None of them would hire her once they called the Riverside Grill for references. Her phone sat beside her, silent. No calls, no messages, just the cease and desist letter from Whitmore and Associates that had arrived by courier at 11 p.m. last night. Marcus Hastings wasn't just content with destroying her job. He wanted to make sure she stayed destroyed. Rachel opened a new browser tab and typed his name. She didn't know why. Maybe to understand what kind of man uses power like a weapon. Hastings Tech Solutions, founded 2008, specialized in healthcare management software. Current valuation, $8.7 billion. She clicked through to their portfolio page and stopped. Hospital management systems, electronic health records, surgical scheduling software, client list, Seattle Memorial Hospital, Massachusetts General Hospital, Johns Hopkins, Stanford Medical Center. 47 hospitals total. Marcus Hastings had his fingers in every major hospital on the West Coast, including the hospital that destroyed her career. Rachel's hands went cold. Was this a coincidence? Or was there something deeper here? Some connection she wasn't seeing? Her doorbell rang. She almost didn't answer, afraid it was another legal letter, another attack. But when she opened the door, Dolores Martinez stood there holding a thermos of coffee and a paper bag that smelled like fresh bagels. "You're not going to starve on my watch," Dolores said, pushing past her into the apartment. Dolores Martinez was 71 years old, widowed for 5 years, no children, and a regular at the Riverside Grill for the past 3 years. She always sat at table 3, always ordered the salmon, and always left exactly 23% tip, because servers deserve math that works out clean. Rachel had never known she was more than a kind regular. "I worked at Seattle Memorial for 35 years, Dolores said, setting the coffee on the counter. "Retired RN, cardiac wing." She turned to face Rachel fully. "I know your story, Dr. Monroe. I know what Lawrence Brennan did to you." Rachel's breath caught. "How?" "Because I was there," Dolores said quietly. "I was the head surgical nurse when you were there on rotation 2 years ago. I saw you work. I saw Brennan's hands start to shake. And I watched the hospital throw you to the wolves to protect him." Tears burned Rachel's eyes. Someone knew. Someone had seen the truth. "That man last night," Dolores continued, her voice hardening. "Marcus Hastings. He humiliated you because he could. Because men like him think money makes them right about everything, including who deserves respect." She pulled a notepad from her purse. "I'm writing a statement about what I witnessed. The choking, the rescue, his cruelty, all of it. You're filing a complaint with the labor board for retaliatory termination." I can't afford a legal battle, Rachel whispered. Then it's a good thing I can, Dolores said. My husband left me very comfortable when he passed, and I've been looking for a righteous fight for 5 years. Rachel stared at this woman, this stranger who was offering to fight her battle. Why? Rachel asked. Because invisible people deserve to be seen, Dolores said simply. And because I'm tired of watching powerful men destroy good people. Rachel made the choice. Active, deliberate, terrifying. Okay, she said. Let's fight. Marcus sat in his corner office on the 43rd floor of Hastings Tower, staring at the background report on his desk. Gregor Stevens, his head of corporate security, stood by the window waiting. The report was 12 pages long. Every detail of Rachel Monroe's life, laid out in clinical precision. Rachel and Monroe, age 34. MD, Johns Hopkins University School of Medicine, 2015. Cardiac Surgery Fellowship, Massachusetts General Hospital, 2015 to 2019. Published research, Journal of Thoracic Surgery, 2017-2018. Medical license. Suspended, pending investigation, March 2024. Reason, patient death during aortic dissection repair surgery. Current employment, terminated, the Riverside Grill, November 14th, 2025. Every word was true. She was a surgeon, a real one, published, educated, experienced. And he'd called her a liar in front of 47 people. Marcus's phone rang. Trevor Chin. He'd been calling every hour since last night. Marcus had ignored every call. This time he answered. You humiliated someone who saved my life, Trevor said, without preamble. What's wrong with you? I was protecting. Protecting what, Marcus? Your ego? Trevor's voice was sharp, angry. Trevor never got angry. She saved my life, and you treated her like garbage because you couldn't handle being wrong. People lie about credentials all the time, Marcus said, but the words felt hollow. I was protecting the restaurant. You were protecting yourself, Trevor shot back. And you know it. The line went dead. Marcus sat in silence, staring at his phone wallpaper. Isabella, age 12 in the photo, wearing a hospital gown, giving a thumbs up after her 3rd heart surgery. Her smile was brave and small. She was 15 now. 3 years since that surgery. 3 years of borrowed time. Isabella had been born with aortic coarctation, a narrowing of the main artery from her heart, complicated by valve abnormalities. She'd had surgeries at ages 6, 9, and 12. Each one bought her more time. Each one terrified Marcus in ways nothing else ever had. He'd built an empire. He controlled software that ran hospitals across the country. He had $4.2 billion, and none of it could fix his daughter. Control was all he had left. Control over his company, his employees, his reputation. Control over every situation, every interaction, every moment. Because he couldn't control the thing that mattered most. The background report stared up at him. Rachel Monroe had lost everything because she told the truth, and he'd punished her for it again. Marcus picked up his phone and called his PR team. Draft a statement, he said, about the incident at the Riverside Grill. What angle, sir? Marcus looked at Isabella's photo, looked at Rachel's report. Question her qualifications, he said. Emphasize the suspended license. Position me as concerned about public safety. He hung up before they could respond. Trevor was right. Marcus was protecting himself. But he'd spent 18 years protecting Isabella from a world that wanted to hurt her. And somewhere along the way, he'd forgotten how to stop protecting, stop controlling, stop attacking anything that made him feel powerless. The intercom buzzed. Mr. Hastings, you have a call from Lakeside Academy. Marcus frowned. Isabella's school. She was in class. They never called during. His blood went cold. Put them through, he said. The voice on the other end was calm but urgent. "Mr. Hastings, this is Principal Morrison. Isabella collapsed during PE class. Paramedics are transporting her to Seattle Memorial now. You need to come immediately." The phone slipped from Marcus's hand. Everything else disappeared. There was only one thing in the world that mattered, and she was dying. The security footage had been recording the entire time, and when it went viral at 6:47 a.m. Saturday morning, Marcus Hastings woke up to 4,000 missed calls, and the first time in his life, his name was trending for all the wrong reasons. Carlos Mendez had worked the line at the Riverside Grill for 3 years. 27 years old, culinary school dropout, supporting his mother and younger sister on a line cook salary. He'd seen a lot of terrible customers, but what he'd witnessed Thursday night was different. After his shift ended at 11 p.m., Carlos went to the security office. His cousin worked building security, had access to the camera feeds. "I need footage from tonight," Carlos said. "Dining room camera 3, 8:30 to 9 p.m. His cousin hesitated. "Carlos, man, I could lose my job." "That waitress saved a man's life," Carlos interrupted. "And that billionaire destroyed her for it. You really want to protect him?" His cousin made a copy. Friday night, 11:30 p.m. Carlos uploaded it to TikTok. Caption: "Billionaire Marcus Hastings humiliates waitress who just saved his friend's life. Then she reveals she's actually a surgeon." His reaction? Watch. The video was 2 minutes and 47 seconds long. It showed everything. Trevor Chin choking, face going gray. Rachel sprinting across the dining room with perfect precision. The Heimlich maneuver, textbook perfect. Trevor gasping back to life. The restaurant erupting in applause. Then Rachel's quiet admission: "I'm a cardiac surgeon." And Marcus Hastings's face. The sneer. The cruelty. And what exactly does a surgeon do serving tables? The mockery. The public humiliation. The 1-cent tip hitting the table with that awful ping. The video ended with Rachel standing there, trembling, while Marcus walked away. By midnight, 50,000 views. By 3 a.m., 800,000 views. By 6:47 a.m. Saturday morning, 8.4 million views. Marcus's phone woke him at 6:52 a.m. Then it didn't stop. Calls from his PR team, his lawyers, his board members, his investors. Text messages flooding in faster than he could read them. Emailed notifications screaming for attention. He opened Twitter. Hashtag Hastings humiliation was trending #1 worldwide. The video was everywhere. Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, LinkedIn. News outlets had picked it up. Tech billionaire mocks surgeon waitress who saved his friend's life. The comments were vicious. "This is why people hate billionaires. She saved his friend and he treated her like trash. A 1-cent tip? Are you kidding me? Boycott Hastings Tech. She's a surgeon and he's just a bully with money." By 9 a.m., Hastings Tech stock had dropped from $847 per share to $814. $33 gone. Hundreds of millions in market value evaporated. Marcus's PR team assembled an emergency call. "We need to get ahead of this," his publicist said. "Apologize immediately. Full statement. Donation to medical charity. Public mea culpa." "No," Marcus said. "Silence on the line. Sir, with respect, this is a crisis." "Draft a different statement," Marcus interrupted, his voice cold. "Question her qualifications. Her medical license is suspended. Emphasize that. Position me as concerned about someone misrepresenting medical expertise in a public setting." "Mr. Hastings, that will make this worse." "Do it," Marcus said and hung up. He was doubling down, attacking harder, because admitting he was wrong felt like losing control, and losing control felt like drowning. By noon, the statement went out. Mr. Hastings was appropriately concerned when an individual with a suspended medical license claimed surgical expertise in a public restaurant. Patient safety is paramount. Mr. Hastings stands by his actions. The internet exploded again. Worse this time. By 2 p.m., Marcus's legal team sent a cease and desist letter to Rachel Monroe, threatening defamation litigation if she made any public statements about the incident. Trevorchin called. Marcus didn't answer. His daughter called. He did answer that one. "Dad," Isabella said, her voice small. "Everyone at school is talking about it. They're saying you were mean to someone who saved Uncle Trevor." "It's complicated, sweetheart." "Was she really surgeon?" Isabella asked. Marcus closed his eyes. "Yes." "Then why were you mean to her?" He had no answer his daughter would understand. No answer he understood himself. Saturday afternoon, 3:17 p.m. The cease and desist letter arrived at Rachel's apartment. Rachel read it twice, her hand shaking. Legal threats, defamation claims, demands for silence. Marcus Hastings wasn't done destroying her. He wanted to make sure she stayed destroyed. She couldn't afford another legal battle. She had $847.29 and no job. Fighting him would bankrupt her completely. Her phone rang. Unknown number. She almost didn't answer. "Dr. Monroe?" A woman's voice, professional, warm. "This is Dr. Naomi Okafor, Chief of Cardiac Surgery at Seattle Memorial Hospital." Rachel's breath stopped. "I've seen the video," Dr. Okafor continued, "and I've been following your volunteer work in our free clinic for the past 6 months. I've also been advocating with the medical board to review your case." "I don't understand," Rachel whispered. "You were scapegoated, Dr. Monroe. I've read the surgical notes from the case at Mass General. I've spoken with nurses who were in that operating room. Lawrence Brennan made that error, not you." Dr. Okafor's voice turned fierce. "And that video showed me exactly who you are. Someone who saves lives even when she has nothing to gain. Someone who uses medical knowledge reflexively, perfectly under pressure." Rachel's eyes burned with tears. "I'm offering you a supervised clinical position in our cardiac surgery department," Dr. Okafor said, "working toward full license reinstatement. Starting Monday if you'll take it." Rachel couldn't speak. "The medical board has reviewed your case based on my recommendation," Dr. Okafor continued. "They're prepared to accelerate your reinstatement process. 6 months of supervised clinical work, and you're back, fully licensed. Dr. Rachel Monroe, cardiac surgeon." Rachel sat on her apartment floor and cried. Relief, terror, hope, all of it flooding through her at once. "Why?" she finally asked. "Why are you helping me?" "Because the medical profession needs people who tell the truth even when it costs them everything," Dr. Okafor said simply. "Will you take the position?" Rachel thought about Marcus Hastings and his legal threats. Thought about the viral video and the public humiliation. Thought about 18 months of hiding, of being invisible, of pretending her expertise didn't exist. "Yes," she said. "I'll take it." "Good," Dr. Okafor said. "Monday morning, 6 a.m., cardiac wing. Wear your white coat, Dr. Monroe. You've earned it." The call ended. Rachel sat in her apartment, holding the cease and desist letter in one hand and Dr. Okafor's phone number in the other. Dolores arrived an hour later with dinner. "I got the position," Rachel said, "at Seattle Memorial, supervised clinical work toward reinstatement." Dolores smiled. "Of course you did." Rachel held up the cease and desist letter. "Marcus Hastings is threatening to sue me if I talk publicly about what happened." "Then don't talk publicly," Dolores said simply. "Go back to medicine. Be brilliant. Let him destroy himself." She poured tea into 2 mugs. Men like Marcus Hastings always destroy themselves eventually. They just need time and rope. Rachel looked at the letter again, then at her phone showing the viral video with 12 million views now. "I'm not fighting him," she decided. "I'm going back to who I was before he ever walked into that restaurant." Dr. Rachel Monroe, cardiac surgeon. Monday morning, November 18th. Rachel walked into Seattle Memorial Hospital, wearing her white coat for the first time in 18 months. She didn't know that in 72 hours, Marcus Hastings would walk into the same hospital, and his daughter would be dying, and Rachel would be the only person in the world who could save her. Marcus was in a board meeting at Hastings Tech headquarters when his phone rang with the Seattle Memorial caller ID, and in 0.4 seconds he knew. The only reason that hospital ever called was Isabella. Tuesday, November 19th, 11:23 a.m. Marcus excused himself from the meeting and answered the phone in the hallway, his heart already pounding. "Mr. Hastings, this is Dr. Patterson from Seattle Memorial Emergency Department." The voice was professionally calm, which somehow made it worse. "Your daughter Isabella was brought in by ambulance approximately 15 minutes ago. She collapsed during PE class at Lakeside Academy." The hallway tilted. What happened? Marcus's voice didn't sound like his own. "She presented with severe chest pain, loss of consciousness, and symptoms consistent with cardiac emergency. We're running diagnostics now. You need to come to the hospital immediately." Marcus was moving before the call ended. His driver got him to Seattle Memorial in 11 minutes. It felt like 11 hours. The ER was chaos. Marcus pushed through to the cardiac unit, found the nurse's station. "Isabella Hastings," he said, his voice breaking. "My daughter, she was just brought in." "Mr. Hastings." A doctor appeared, mid-40s, calm but serious. "I'm Dr. Patterson. Your daughter is in imaging now. Her symptoms indicate an acute aortic event." "What does that mean?" Marcus demanded, even though he knew. He'd known since she was 6 years old, since the first surgery. "We're seeing signs of aortic dissection," Dr. Patterson said quietly. "A tear in the wall of her aorta, given her medical history. This is a serious complication of her congenital condition." Marcus's legs almost gave out. "How serious?" "We're bringing in cardiothoracic surgery for consultation. Dr. Lawrence Brennan is examining her imaging now." Brennan. Marcus knew that name. His company had contracted Brennan as chief medical consultant for their hospital software integration 2 years ago. The man was supposedly one of the best cardiac surgeons in the country. Marcus waited. 37 minutes that felt like days. Dr. Brennan finally emerged from the imaging suite. He was in his late 50s, distinguished, but Marcus noticed his hands trembled slightly as he held the tablet. "Mr. Hastings," Brennan said, his voice grave. "Your daughter has a Stanford type A aortic dissection with involvement of the aortic valve. This is immediately life-threatening. She needs emergency surgery." "Then operate," Marcus said. "Now." Brennan hesitated. "The specific type of repair Isabella requires is complex. A modified Bentall procedure with aortic arch reconstruction. It requires extremely specialized expertise." "You've done this before," Marcus said. "It wasn't a question." 3 times, Brennan admitted. "But not recently," and he stopped. "And what?" Marcus's voice turned dangerous. "I'm recommending we consult with Dr. Naomi Okafor, our chief of cardiac surgery." 20 minutes later, Dr. Okafor arrived. She was in her early 50s, Nigerian American, with the kind of presence that commanded instant respect. She reviewed Isabella's imaging in silence, her face grave. Then she turned to Marcus. "Mr. Hastings, your daughter's condition is critical. The dissection is progressing. Without surgical intervention, the aorta will rupture. She has approximately 6 hours. 6 hours. Isabella had 6 hours to live. Dr. Brennan can perform the surgery," Marcus said, desperately. Dr. Okafor's expression didn't change. "Dr. Brennan has recommended we consult with a specialist in pediatric aortic dissection repair. There's no time to fly someone in." "We don't need to," Dr. Okafor interrupted gently. "There are 12 surgeons in North America qualified to perform this specific procedure. 8 are unavailable. 3 cannot get here in time." She paused. "1 is here, in this hospital, working in our supervised clinical program." Marcus felt cold. Who? Dr. Okafor led Marcus to a private consultation room. Through the window, he could see Isabella in the ICU, unconscious, monitors beeping, tubes running from her arms. His daughter. His whole world. The surgeon I'm recommending, Dr. Okafor said carefully, is Dr. Rachel Monroe. The name hit Marcus like a physical blow. The floor tilted beneath his Italian leather shoes. Time stuttered. His mind couldn't process the words. Rachel Monroe, the waitress, the woman he'd humiliated, the woman he'd gotten fired, the woman his lawyers had threatened. No, Marcus said, not her. Anyone but her. Dr. Monroe has performed 47 modified Bentall procedures with aortic arch reconstruction, Dr. Okafor said, her voice steady and clinical. Her surgical success rate is 96%. She specializes in complex pediatric cardiac repairs. She is, without question, the most qualified surgeon available for your daughter's specific condition. What about Brennan? Marcus demanded. Dr. Okafor's expression hardened. Dr. Brennan has performed 3 of these surgeries. His hands are no longer steady enough for this level of precision. She leaned forward. Mr. Hastings, I need you to understand something. Dr. Brennan is the reason Dr. Monroe lost her license. Marcus stared at her. What? 18 months ago, Dr. Brennan made a critical surgical error during an aortic dissection repair at Massachusetts General Hospital. A patient died. Dr. Monroe was the junior surgeon assisting. She refused to falsify the surgical notes, so the hospital suspended her license and protected Brennan. The revelation crashed through Marcus like a wave. The patient who died, Dr. Okafor continued quietly, was Robert Thornton, tech executive, founder of CloudSync Solutions. Marcus knew that name. Thornton had been a colleague, an ally, someone Marcus had worked with on multiple deals. Rachel Monroe tried to save him, Dr. Okafor said. Brennan's error killed him, and Rachel took the fall. Marcus felt like he was drowning. Everything he'd believed about Rachel Monroe was wrong. She wasn't a liar. She wasn't incompetent. She was a surgeon who'd lost everything because she refused to lie. And he'd destroyed her again for the same thing, for telling the truth. Dr. Monroe's hands are steady, Dr. Okafor said. Her skills are exceptional, and she is the only surgeon I trust to save your daughter's life. She met his eyes. The question is, will you trust her? Marcus looked through the window at Isabella, 15 years old, 3 heart surgeries, a lifetime of borrowed time. She was everything, his whole world, the only thing that mattered. Does she know? Marcus asked hoarsely. Does Rachel know my daughter is here? Not yet, Dr. Okafor said. I wanted your consent first. Marcus closed his eyes, thought about the penny hitting the table, the 1-cent tip, the mockery, the cease and desist letter. Why would she save my daughter? He whispered. After what I did to her? Because she's a surgeon, Dr. Okafor said simply, and surgeons save lives. The clock on the wall read 2:15 p.m. Isabella had less than 6 hours. Call her, Marcus said, his voice breaking. Please, call Dr. Monroe. Rachel walked into the prep room at 4:47 p.m. and found Marcus Hastings standing there in surgical scrubs, and for the first time since she'd met him, she saw something she recognized. Terror. Dr. Okafor had called Rachel at 2:30 p.m. I have a patient who needs you, she'd said. 15-year-old female, Stanford type, aortic dissection with valve involvement. Modified Bentall with arch reconstruction. Rachel's specialty, the surgery she'd performed 47 times. When Rachel had asked, now, Dr. Okafor said, she has maybe 4 hours before the dissection ruptures. Rachel was at the hospital in 12 minutes. She reviewed the imaging, the patient history, the surgical plan. Everything was clear, straightforward. Then Dr. Okafor told her the patient's name, Isabella Hastings. Rachel had stood in the cardiac wing hallway, staring at the imaging scans, while her mind tried to process. Marcus Hastings' daughter, the man who'd humiliated her, fired her, threatened her. His daughter was dying, and Rachel was the only surgeon who could save her. "I'll understand if you refuse," Dr. Okafor had said quietly, "after what he did to you." "I'm a surgeon," Rachel interrupted. "Get me in that or—" Now she was in the prep room at 4:47 p.m., scrubbing her hands with methodical precision. The familiar ritual, soap, water, the antiseptic smell, the way her hands moved automatically. 2 minutes of scrubbing, every surface, between every finger. The scar on her right wrist caught the harsh fluorescent light. The door opened behind her. Marcus Hastings stood there in surgical scrubs that didn't fit right, looking lost and small and terrified. "Dr. Monroe," he said, his voice cracking. Rachel kept scrubbing, didn't look at him. He stopped. Started again. "I humiliated you. I got you fired. I sent you a legal threat." His voice broke completely. "Why would you save my daughter?" Rachel turned off the water, dried her hands with sterile precision. Then she finally looked at him. "Because I'm a surgeon, Mr. Hastings." Her voice was steady, cold, professional. "Not when it's convenient. Not when patients deserve it. I'm a surgeon because when someone is dying, I know how to stop it." She faced him fully. "Your daughter has Stanford type A dissection with aortic valve involvement. She needs a modified Bentall procedure with arch reconstruction. I performed 47 of these surgeries. Dr. Brennan has performed 3, and his hands shake. Your money can't change those facts." Marcus's face crumpled. "I'm sorry," he whispered. "God, I'm so sorry." Rachel's jaw tightened. "Your apology doesn't change what you did, but it also doesn't change what I do." She pulled on her surgical gloves. "I save lives. That's who I am when no one's watching. And it's who I am when everyone is." She moved toward the door, then stopped. "Your daughter has 78 minutes before the dissection becomes inoperable," she said, without looking back. "Get out of my prep room and stay in the observation window where you belong." Marcus nodded, tears streaming down his face. "Save her," he choked out. "Please." "I'm going to try," Rachel said, then added softer. "I'm going to do everything I can." Rachel entered the operating theater at 5:02 p.m. Isabella Hastings lay unconscious on the table, intubated, draped in sterile blue. 15 years old. Her whole life ahead of her. The surgical team was already assembled. Dr. Okafor assisting, 2 resident surgeons, cardiac perfusionist, anesthesiologist, 3 nurses. Professional, competent, ready. Through the observation window above, Marcus Hastings stood with his hands pressed against the glass. Trevorchin had arrived, standing silently beside him. In another window, Dr. Brennan watched, his hands clasped tightly together to hide their trembling. "Good evening," Rachel said to her team. Her voice carried the calm authority of someone who'd been here before. "Patient is Isabella Hastings, 15 years old, Stanford type 8 aortic dissection with valve involvement. We're performing a modified Bentall procedure with arch reconstruction. Estimated time, 4 to 5 hours. Questions?" No one spoke. "Then let's save her life," Rachel said. She made the first incision at 5:09 p.m. For the next 4 hours, Rachel disappeared into the surgery. Her hands moved with absolute confidence, no hesitation. Every motion precise. This was who she was. This was where she belonged. "Aortic cross-clamp in place," she narrated. "Beginning cardiopulmonary bypass." Isabella's heart stopped. The bypass machine took over, pumping blood through her body while Rachel worked. "Dissection visible," Rachel said, "extending from the aortic valve through the arch, preparing for graft placement." Dr. Okafor assisted with perfect synchronization. The residents watched, learning, as Rachel's hands performed surgery most of them would never master. At hour 3, complications arose. bleeding from the arch anastomosis, the perfusionist reported. Rachel's hands didn't shake. Additional sutures. Pledge of support. She worked quickly, calmly, adjusting her technique. In the observation window, Marcus Hastings collapsed into a chair, his head in his hands. Trevor put a hand on his shoulder. Bleeding controlled, Rachel said 15 minutes later, continuing with valve replacement. At 9:18 p.m., 4 hours and 9 minutes after the first incision, Rachel stepped back from the table. Valve replacement complete, she said. Aortic arch reconstructed. Dissection repaired. She looked at the monitors, showing Isabella's heart rhythm. Let's close. In the observation window, Marcus Hastings sobbed. Trevor held him up. Dr. Brennan watched in silence, knowing his career was over. Knowing Rachel had just performed the surgery he could no longer do. Rachel closed the incision with the same precision she'd used to open it. At 9:47 p.m., she stepped away from the table. Good work, everyone, she said to her team. Dr. Okafor, she's yours for recovery. Rachel stripped off her gloves, her mask, her surgical gown. Her hands were steady. Her heartbeat was calm. She walked out of the OR and found Marcus Hastings waiting in the hallway, still in those ill-fitting scrubs, his face destroyed by tears and relief. She's alive, Rachel said simply. The surgery was successful. Barring complications, she'll make a full recovery. Marcus sank against the wall, unable to stand. Thank you, he whispered. Thank you. Thank you. Rachel looked at him. This man who tried to destroy her, now broken and grateful and human. I didn't do it for you, she said quietly. I did it because it's what I do. Because I'm a surgeon, and surgeons save lives. She walked away, leaving Marcus Hastings in that hospital hallway, finally understanding what it meant to be powerless, and what it meant to be saved by someone you tried to destroy. 3 weeks later, Rachel walked into Seattle Memorial Hospital's main entrance as Dr. Rachel Monroe, attending cardiac surgeon. And the first person she saw in the lobby was Marcus Hastings, holding a bouquet of white orchids and an envelope. Isabella had recovered. Fully, beautifully, miraculously. She'd spent 8 days in the cardiac ICU, then another week in recovery. Rachel had checked on her every day, monitoring her progress, adjusting medications, ensuring the repair held. Yesterday, Isabella had gone home. Rachel's medical license had been reinstated 2 days ago. Dr. Okafor had submitted testimony to the medical board, along with statements from 12 surgical team members who'd witnessed Rachel's expertise firsthand. The board had reviewed her case, examined the evidence from the Massachusetts General Incident, and concluded what Dr. Okafor had known all along. Rachel Monroe had been scapegoated. Her license was restored. No restrictions, no probation. Seattle Memorial offered her a permanent position, attending cardiac surgeon, specializing in complex repairs. Salary $380,000 per year. Rachel had accepted. She'd also deposited her first paycheck yesterday, $14,615.38. 2 weeks of work, more money than she'd made in 3 months at the Riverside Grill. Now she walked through the hospital lobby in her white coat, her name embroidered over the pocket. Dr. Rachel Monroe, cardiac surgery. And Marcus Hastings stood there waiting. He looked different, smaller somehow, humbled. The arrogance that had clung to him like expensive cologne was gone. Dr. Monroe, he said quietly, may I have a moment? Rachel stopped. She could have walked past him, could have pretended not to see him, but that wasn't who she was. One moment, she said. He handed her the envelope. His hand shook slightly. Rachel opened it. Inside, a check, made out to Dr. Rachel Monroe. Amount, $340,000. The exact amount of her legal debt from the Massachusetts General case. She looked up at him. This doesn't make us even, Marcus said, his voice rough. Nothing makes us even, but it's what I can do. He swallowed hard. You saved my daughter's life after I tried to destroy yours. I can never repay that. but I can at least try to undo some of the damage I've caused. Rachel looked at the check. $340,000. Freedom from debt. Freedom from the weight she'd been carrying for 18 months. She folded it carefully and put it in her pocket. "I'm not cashing this because you're sorry, Mr. Hastings," she said. "I'm cashing it because I earned it. My skill, my knowledge, my years of training, they had value whether you saw it or not. This isn't charity. It's restitution." Marcus nodded, tears in his eyes. "You're right." Rachel started to walk away, then stopped, turned back. "Isabella starts cardiac rehab next week," she said. "I'll be her follow-up surgeon. So you and I are going to see each other regularly. Can you handle that?" Marcus looked at her. This woman he'd mocked, humiliated, tried to silence. This woman who'd saved the only thing in the world that mattered to him. "I'm going to learn to," he said quietly. Rachel nodded. "Good. Because Isabella deserves the best care. And I'm going to make sure she gets it." She walked away, her white coat billowing behind her, no longer invisible. Marcus watched her go, holding the white orchids he'd brought. Flowers she hadn't accepted. Flowers he didn't deserve to give. In his pocket, his phone buzzed. A text from Isabella. "Dad, Dr. Monroe says I can go back to school next week. She's amazing. I want to be a surgeon like her someday." Marcus read the text and understood, finally, what real power looked like. It wasn't money. It wasn't control. It wasn't the ability to destroy people with a phone call. Real power was Rachel Monroe walking away from his apology, his money, his guilt, and choosing to save his daughter anyway. Real power was knowing who you were when no one was watching, and being that person when everyone was. Rachel's journey from invisible to unstoppable took 647 days. From a 1-cent tip to a $340,000 check. From scrubbing tables to saving lives. If you made it this far, you're part of the community that believes expertise doesn't disappear when circumstances change. That believes invisible people deserve to be seen. That believes competence has value regardless of where it's found. Hit that subscribe button. Leave a like. Because I find stories like Rachel's. Stories of hidden geniuses, secret experts. People working invisible jobs while possessing extraordinary skills. And here's my question for you. What hidden skill do you have that people would never guess from your current position? Drop it in the comments below. I read every single one. Your story might be next. Because the world is full of invisible experts. And I'm making them visible one story at a time.